Welcome to the Amazon Legends podcast, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became powerful sellers, also experts specializing in helping sellers, and both former and current Amazon employees who will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here's your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. My next guest today is a serial entrepreneur. He founded several businesses, building several brands on Amazon. He's also the host of the Amazon Strategist Show, and he's the CEO at Seller Candy and a fan of Tony Robbins, of all people. Which doesn't surprise me. So everybody meet my guest, John Cavendish. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me. Nice intro.
Great to have you. So you have a very sweet name for your company, Seller Candy. So I have a feeling it doesn't give out candy, but it kind of deals with not so candy-like material. So I know you deal with. When I looked up your company, it says anything as a seller that you don't want to deal with, bring it to us. That's what you specialize in. So give us some of the things that are, it's basically you are in the business of fixing sellers and whatever that may be. So give us some interesting fixes that you had to deal with.
Cool, thanks. So, we see ourselves as you said, we do all the shoveling in the back end of your Amazon business. And we have a team that we see ourselves as the intersection between like experts and assistants. So we provide expert outcome-driven assistance for sellers, particularly on Amazon Seller Central. So literally fixing all the stuff that can go wrong with your Amazon account through Amazon Seller Central.
So are you talking about preemptive, or there's a crisis and you're reacting to it?
Good point. Good question. Both. So preemptive as in like fixing account health, auditing the account, looking for like profit drains and broken things and where things just aren't connected properly. And then fixes like ASIN suspensions, plans of action, all the stuff which you really don't want to deal with. Because if it hits you hard, and you're losing thousands a day if you're a high volume seller.
So, what I'd like to do with you in this show is really lay it out, like if you like build the anatomy of a healthy seller account. Because what happens is a lot of the times people come to me and say, well, can you take a look at this account, or can you look at that account, or as a favor, or as they want to be client and they don't really know, they know things are not working right. And one of the first things I do is I pull up one of their listings, and then I go to their seller profile. And right there, immediately, I have an idea about their volume, because just from their seller feedback, not product rating, but the seller feedback, I can tell how many postings there are in the last 30, 90 days. And if they are fairly consistent, or there's been a spike, or there's been a drop recently. But more important, I look at their negatives, and I see numbers like 14%, 8%, 15%. And I tell them, your account is at risk. You have to do something. And they don't even know that,
Wow.
Oh, where do you see that? So they don't even know. So that just happens to be one of the things. So share with us some specifics of what a healthy account looks like in terms of numbers and where you find those numbers.
I guess those guys you're looking at are doing fulfilled by merchant or have their own 3PLs. Because if you've got those kind of negative seller feedbacks and you're not doing that, then something's gone wrong. Like your account is really screwed. Because otherwise you should be able to remove them. Mostly because if it's an FBA centric account, then you can usually get Amazon to remove most negative feedback, because it's almost always to do with Amazon, and it's their fault. So they can put their hand up and say, yeah, it was me. We can push to remove most of that feedback.
So let's clarify that a little bit for the listeners' benefit. So if there's a couple of things, right? So if we're talking about seller rating strictly, not product. So if you have negatives and the customer complain about the shipping service, and you happen to be doing FBA, that means that Amazon has taken responsibility for the shipping, and the customer complain, you have the right to complain and have that negative removed. And in fact, if I'm not wrong, there is even a button for you to request removal so that you don't have to create tickets and things like that. So that's one aspect of it, right? That's what you're referring to.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation. So that's about 60%, 60 to 70% of the time that button works, and it will remove it, and say 30% of the time it doesn't work. And then you do have to raise cases and like really push Amazon support to remove those things for you.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that I noticed at sometimes, because customers especially Amazon customers, have become really greedy. They want everything for nothing. And yesterday, so sometimes they receive a product and they're not happy with the product, and they post a negative seller feedback. So seller feedback has to be strictly about seller's performance, not product performance. So if the complaint is about a product, you can ask Amazon to have it removed because it's nothing to do with you, right? Would you agree with that? Yes,
I'd agree with that, with the caveat that it's not always removed these days. We have a team that does it. We can push really, really hard for that to happen, and there's no problem with pushing hard. But Amazon isn't as easy as it used to be. It used to just like always remove it, mention a product, but that's not always the case now.
Okay, so now what weeding out, we're focused on the seller rating. We took out the FBA related stuff, we took out the product related stuff, and now we've got still some negatives left. So what is your approach for those?
Make sure you respond to all of them. There shouldn't be any negatives left, to be honest. If you're doing all FBA, probably you're not really going to have any negatives, or one every few months, even if you're doing multiple six figures a month, unless you're abusing customers or not answering their questions promptly. Usually there's no reason to leave a negative seller feedback. FBM, so shipped from a third-party warehouse or your own warehouse, that's where we get into problems, because that's where you'll have shipping issues and you've got way more customer service. And that's where you could have as you said, like an 8% negative or something like that if somebody doesn't manage it well.
Okay. So really, in just a few minutes, we kind of outlined a strategy here. So what you're saying is, first of all, your seller feedback has to be 100% positive. That's what you should aim for. Really, that's the benchmark, because that's what other sellers will look to achieve. And the second thing is, in order to achieve that, you are better off using FBA rather than doing your own fulfillment, because that's going to take away most of the pains, so to speak, in your operation anyway, and avoid the negatives in the meantime. And finally, stay on top of the postings, instead of finding out later from somebody like me says, why is it 14%? Just stay on top of it, look at it every other day or so, and make sure that anything that is either product related or shipping related, if you're doing FBA, ask them to be removed. And if you're still stuck, come to you and ask for help. And either way, get rid of it so that you can stay 100%. Would that be a good summary?
Very good summary. On top of that, this is just scratching the surface. This is like level one of dealing with Amazon support. I would say, as with everything, FBA has way more advantages than just dealing with issues, doesn't it? Like, should help you rank better. Amazon prefers FBA, so a lot of people have Prime membership, and it gives you Prime shipping. And for the monitoring, I wouldn't even check it every 2 days. I'd just find some software that has monitoring integration and just set up automated everything on your Amazon business, because I'd rather, humans are flawed, robots aren't flawed. So just get software set up that'll ping you every time you get something negative so that you can just sort it out.
So share with us some of those tools that you like using.
I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, sure.
We have some built into our, our service. We actually have software set up to do that so that we can do it automatically. I mean, I believe Helium 10 may have one now. I mean, definitely Sentry Kit. I assume AMZ Alert has it. Like basically a lot of software has it. It's not an advanced feature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're an Amazon seller and you're serious, you probably already got one piece of software that has some kind of alert feature. So just look through all the software you're already paying money for and set it up properly.
Okay. All right, cool. So we covered the seller rating. So what else a healthy account should look like? What else are you looking for?
I mean, number one, look at account health. It sounds silly, but look at account health. Look for any account health issues. If you're a reseller, then you'll be in a different position than if you're a brand owner or a private label seller. So private label seller, I'd expect to have 0 account health issues usually. So when you're in account health, you look for anything that's a notification, anything that has a number next to it, and voice of the customer. And voice of the customer means really negative feedback on your ASINs. So you might actually have that as a brand owner, voice of the customer. Being negative means that you've got like a bad batch or certain negative things that Amazon's bots have detected as a theme throughout reviews and throughout feedback and throughout returns. So that gets shoved there. And if your voice of the customer gets too high, Amazon will suspend your ASIN. Then you have to write a plan of action to how you've addressed the voice of the customer. If it's just on account health issues, it could be anything from IP complaints, like you've used a brand name in your listing somewhere, like, oh, it's compatible with iPhone, or it's compatible with X. It might be that someone's complained against you. It might be that Amazon's saying your product arrived damaged. There's all sorts of stuff in there. It only takes 2 seconds to check, but go into account health, scan for anything that looks red and flashy. So basically any warning signs.
Yeah. I mean, they never used to have that before. So in the early days, so they brought that in because they want you to be on top of your performance as a seller in terms of your authenticity, the most important, what the customers think about your listings and whatever you are doing with some of the policy violations. And so what is the best way to respond? Can you, like, is it always case by case basis, or is there like a standard approach to handling these? Because once you have that account health window filled up with something, obviously it's going to show up. It's not always bad news. It's just a concern that may have been raised, but if you do nothing about it, then it will become a problem. So what is the best way to handle these?
Yeah, it depends on which one. So there is a standard process, I would say, for each one, but each issue has a different standard process. Because, if it's an IP complaint, you have to reach out to the IP owner. If it's a voice of the customer issue, you need to address the product issues. If there is an issue, sometimes mostly it's not an issue. If it's a private label product, if it's one thing, you do a different thing.
So I give you one of the things that actually it's abused is, let's say somebody is private label owner selling, and somebody anti-competitive practices. They file a complaint.
Yeah.
And of course, as a preemptive action, Amazon suspends. So give us your approach on dealing with something like that.
I guess what type of complaint are you thinking about?
Well, they complain about the brand not being authentic, or even though you are the private label owner, they complain about the fact that you're not selling authentic.
Okay.
That you have stolen their listing or something along those lines.
So product authenticity, to be honest, we have hundreds of clients, and we don't see many takedowns through malicious intent through product authenticity. But the good thing about product authenticity is it is easy to fight if it does happen, because you're the brand owner. So it's all about following a kind of standard process, which is, as with all things with Amazon, create a case, respond to the complaint with all the things they ask for first time. So they'll want proof of authenticity, so proof that you're the brand owner. They'll want an invoice to show the purchase of the product. Obviously, you're going to have to make that yourself if you are the brand owner, because you sold it yourself and you own the brand. So that's creating your own invoice. Maybe an image of the product would be useful. Just everything that you can think of that they would want. We have a process for that, of course. Raise it to Amazon, and then after you raise it to Amazon, call. Because as with everything Amazon, if you call, you get through quicker. So once you've called, you call through to support. You use the button, which is call me back, inside your brand dashboard. And then you just stay on the phone until somebody who you actually understands you talks to you. So keep calling, keep asking, don't get off the phone.
So this account help, isn't that under seller performance?
Yeah.
But there is no calling seller performance, only seller support, right? And the seller support usually stays hands off when it's performance issues.
So if you can get through to the captive team, so if you can get raised up high enough, then they should be able to support you. And the other option is to go through brand registry, because they have more power than anyone else. So as long as you've got brand registry, which you will have pretty much, unless you've got an exemption. So if you've been selling a while, you'll have brand registry. Go in there, contact support there as well, and raise that case at the same time. So attack them on all angles simultaneously, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen, because it's, even though Amazon likes to be a company with processes, there's a lot of inconsistency in the support calls, right? So you call and then you get a good response, and sometimes nothing, and they say nothing to do with us. That does happen. So how about situations where you have a problem, they ask for stuff, you mentioned, send us proof that you are the owner and send us invoices and things like that. So you provide all that, and then they come back and they ask for the same thing over and over. So it goes back and forth, right? So how do you deal with situations like that?
We have a large team that just continuously follows up with Amazon, basically, and the phoning is the best way. As always, if we get stuck and we've been through brand registry, we've called multiple times, we've raised it multiple times. I mean, that's the time you can, do the thing like pull the emergency cord and email Jeff, the escalations team, but that's not the ideal way to do it. The ideal way to do it is to go through the real process over and over again in the shortest time period possible. And that's really why we exist, because most people don't want to, throw 12 hours at something, because it just takes a lot of time.
So about emailing Jeff, there are two different opinions about it. So of course, in the old days, it was the thing to do. So you would email Jeff, and then every email always got looked at. So recently, one opinion says that doesn't work anymore, stop doing it, it goes nowhere. The other opinion is, no, it does work. Now there is a team that receives that, and they still maintain. So which camp are you in?
Well, we get responses. So, I mean, it does work. I guess another tip for that is, if you really get stuck, Twitter is a great place to go. So you go into Amazon Twitter, go into their seller support for your region, DM them, and they will send you the Twitter escalation form, which is another team, like another type of escalation. And that's another workaround, which has yet another way to escalate. Oh,
that's a very good tip. I never heard that, frankly, myself. So that's great.
Try it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we never
don't try it.
Yeah. So okay. So that's good. So what about, sometimes I've seen, well, what I've seen quite a few times, unfortunately, is you know how it is when something goes wrong. It's usually drastic, because it means that cash flow dries up, right? So there's no, they freeze the funds and everything
If it
else.
goes
So
very wrong, yeah.
yeah, it's really bad. It's bad for the entrepreneur. It's bad for everybody. So and you become angry and you start emailing back, especially those
Yeah,
who don't
don't do
know,
that.
and you don't want to do that. You don't. First of all, you don't deny. You don't go at Amazon, and you don't ask questions either. You hoping that they're gonna tell you so that you're gonna respond. No, you're supposed to know what to do, and that means POA, right? Plan of action. So
Yeah,
so what I've seen over and over, bad submissions, no real plan of action,
yeah,
defensive,
yeah.
statements being sent several times. So finally, they realize we have to do something, and then they bring you in. And by that time, Amazon has sent an email saying that we may not respond to this issue again. So is that like the dead end, that doesn't matter what happens, this is the end, or what are the ways around it?
Well, I mean, so first of all, like the way we work with clients usually is not on an ongoing basis. So we don't just do emergencies, we kind of provide ongoing support. So usually when things happen, a client's already our client, we've been doing everything else for them. So like feed files, feedback monitoring, all the stuff which you mentioned, like we do all the crap in the back end they don't want to do on a daily basis. So when they have this issue, we write the first plan of action. So it's great, it's like we get it back up same day, easy. Yeah, when they've been around the dead end, and Amazon says, you cannot message us anymore, we will not respond to anything. It doesn't really mean anything. Amazon will respond. It's not the end of the world at all. It's horrible when people receive those emails because it seems like it's the end of the world. But no, it's fine. Just like when Amazon says you cannot have an Amazon account, we will not respond to any more emails. You are not allowed to have one. It's not the end of the world. So just write a plan of action. And just as you said, the kind of general rules are admit responsibility, even if it's not your fault, because it usually isn't your fault. Put a plan in place, which makes logical sense. I will do 1, 2, 3, simple and short, not like an essay, because they've got someone reading it quickly in like 10 seconds, I assume. Yes, or as quickly as possible. And then this is what I'm going to do to go forward. And that's it. So, even if it was really not your fault. So a good example I've got is, I think one of our clients a while ago, like a year ago, got a warning and a listing suspended for selling new sold as used. Used sold as new. So, and they were out of stock when they got their warning. And they got the warning because Amazon found some stock lying around the warehouse, added it to their inventory, and then it sold, and then it was used stock. Amazon had found, someone, employee had found it and shoved it into their inventory, and then they sold it. So nothing to do with them. But at the end of the day, they got it suspended. So the plan of action they had to write was, I'm very sorry that I sold these used items which I didn't sell were not sold right. This is the plan. I don't know, I can't remember what the plan was now, but basically like, I won't let Amazon resell my stuff again, my used items again. And that's the issue. So it's just admit, write the plan, continue, and that's it, no defensiveness, no explaining, just this is what happened and we'll make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. So how do you stop? Because this is another issue, because one of the things that I always talk about is the analytics, which happens to be my interest area. And one of those data points that we track is the buy box retention rate. What percentage of the time you are in the buy box? And of course, if you are a private label seller, you are the only seller, you should own the buy box 100%. So the number should never be less than 100.
Yeah.
But that's never the case. Sometimes you lose it for all kinds of reasons. But one of the reasons is customers return your item, and for whatever reason, Amazon decides to keep it because they feel it's damaged due to their fault, and they pay you for it. But now they have it in stock, and they list it on your listing as Amazon warehouse. So, and by the way, they list it as used.
Yeah.
Also. So this is the case that you are talking about, where item was sold, Amazon put it in stock, and it was sold, but they didn't actually tag it used. They still added to stock. So how do you stop Amazon from selling your items?
Actually, this case was a little bit different because they added it to our client's inventory as lost, and then found inventory, so that they could then, because it was lost, they would have, I assumed, reimbursed the client full retail for those items.
Right.
But then when they found them, they shoved them back and then would have done a rebate on, so the client lost that money. I mean, there's no way I know of stopping Amazon from reselling your stuff through warehouse deals.
Yeah.
Usually warehouse deal stuff doesn't get the buy box though. I mean, I don't think it ever really gets the buy box unless you run out of stock.
No, they don't get in the buy box, but they cause you to lose the buy box, because then they won't show anybody in the buy box, and they'll just say available from these sellers. You have to click the link and it opens up a window, and in it you have two sellers. You are the top one, but
that's when your
the buy
metrics
box
drop.
is gone, so it causes the sales to bleed. So I'm curious, how did you find out about, I mean, this was such a discovery on your part. How did you find out that Amazon actually put the item back in stock and then let them sell it?
Oh, I think we just looked at the inventory report.
Wow, I mean,
just look at the sales report.
That's quite a discovery.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, they basically they were newly sold items, and they hadn't sent any inventory in. They were out of stock. So they're out of stock at the time. So that's why it wasn't really a discovery. It was like, we didn't send anything in, but we've sold some. I'm like, oh, right, well, that's weird. That was very easy. It was an easy discovery. It's not like we had any advanced metrics. It was like, cool, well, they sold something they didn't have.
Yeah.
So that made it easy.
I mean, the reason why I say it's a discovery is because, you don't really know. It's not in isolation, because some things, the sale may have taken place in the past, and then they may have complained. So it's very hard to, pinpoint. And Amazon is moving inventory around the country all the time. So, I mean, that's one of the things. It's a little bit unrelated, but let's say that you want to go, you haven't been managing your inventory real time through your systems, and then you decided to do that and say, okay, I want to put my inventory on the books. What is the accurate reading? There is no way to get the accurate reading of your inventory, right? Because it's always moving about, and you don't know. It's in transit between locations. It's in transit from you to them, and so it's very hard to actually pinpoint inventory. So okay, so bottom line, really, that account health window, you have to attend to it. How about the policy violations? What is because you get so many of those, and a lot of them kind of look unimportant, but nevertheless they are violations. So what is your take on those?
I mean, Outtakes in general, any violation, you should address it. Just because, it's nice to address as many things as possible, because anything can ding against your account health. Violations may or may not be removed by Amazon, but at least you can raise against what they raised. You can respond, get them to agree that it wasn't an issue, and then if in the future you have an issue, you can then reference that case. But that violation may not disappear. It may stay on your account for the 6 months, 180 days until it expires, and then it just drops off the back end. And
how about the listing quality? There is another one about listing quality. Share with us some of those situations that surround listing quality.
Which ones in particular?
No, I mean, there is a line item in that account health window, is listing quality. So why would you get a negative for listing quality? What is important there? What should you be looking at?
Good question. For listing quality, I can't think right now what causes it.
So one thing that this is nothing really that much of a rocket science, but one thing that happens is, and when I was a seller, this used to happen quite often. So it wasn't my private label. We were just a reseller. So in health and beauty space, brands often rebrand the product. So the listing itself obviously is created at some point by somebody, and then you have a bunch of sellers selling under it. And if you were doing FBA or you were doing your own shipment, if the brand changed the packaging and you are selling the new packaging, but the listing itself has the old picture, you're going to get complaints. We used to get complaints, and when people say, oh, this is, of course, the immediate complaint was, this is counterfeit. It doesn't look like the picture. So what I did basically was I put, and this is what I recommend for all my clients, make sure that you do random check on X number of, just do sampling. Every time you're sending FBA shipment, make sure that somebody looks at the package that you're shipping out physically and then checks it against the listing and make sure that it matches. Because if it doesn't look like the picture, you're going to get complaints. So that's where it becomes listing quality. Kind of, they say this is not, unique. It basically comes down to content being not a good representation of the product. That's the most common one.
Yeah. So with those ones, we can, it depends. So if they've rebranded a product, it depends whether they've kept the same UPC or not. If they have kept the same UPC, then yeah, you could have the same issue you just explained. If the client was working with us, it really depends on the volume that they've bought. So are they a reseller? Have they got 10 units or they got 40,000 units of this product? If you got 10 units, we probably just say, push it through, doesn't matter. Are you going to restock it? No. All right. Well, doesn't matter. Not worth the effort. Are you going to, or if they've got like a really good distributor for this, and they're going to replan and they're going to sell it over and over again. We say, well, you're not the listing owner, but we can probably push through some listing updates for you. So it just takes more time. So we can create the feed files, we can push it open, we can create, a version with the new and the old one, or we can create the new packaging, and we can help you update the listing.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is no end to this, but at the end of the day, really, the lesson here is just make sure that your account health is in good standing. Stay on top of your seller feedback. Do not neglect that, because that can really be bad news. And one thing that we used to do was your seller feedback would always spike in negatives in the new year, because there's a lot of activity during the shopping season, and more activity means more potential complaints, and those complaints will take place in January or early February. So we would always say, we have to be ready for the negatives in January. So that means by the start of the shopping season, we have to be at no more than 2%, if any. And this is when we were doing our own fulfillment, of course. So, and some products, you can't use FBA. Like, for example, I have a client, they have hazardous stuff. It's not hazardous like explosive, but it's corrosive material. So they do their own shipping. So, it's one of those things. And sometimes there are high ticket items. You'd rather not like stock so many. So there are legitimate reasons for FBM. However, they will attract these situations. So always by the start of the shopping season, try to be no more than like 2-3%. So that way, if you get hit, then it's not going to be a threatening number. So John, let's look at the big picture a little bit, and then I'd like to see your take on the overall Amazon operation. I mean, obviously, Amazon has the largest market share and everything, but a winning business model is private label rather than be a reseller. So what do you see as the biggest opportunity on Amazon? Why Amazon? Why not focus on your own Shopify-driven website or your own website-driven sales or Walmart? Give us your take on the opportunity Amazon presents.
I mean, I do think that Walmart and other channels are great opportunities. The good thing about Amazon, just like the good thing about Walmart, really, is that they're providing the traffic. So they're providing the marketing, and they're really providing the market research, they're providing the data, they're providing the search data. I mean, they're basically showing you how you can make money, and you don't need to take care really after that of the real marketing. And the real marketing, I mean, like if you had your own Shopify store, how do you convert a cold prospect or somebody looking for a product into knowing they want to buy your product? You know, Amazon is almost doing most of that work for you. They've got the warm prospect who's, I don't know what, 30 to 50% likely to make a buying decision for some product, not like at 2 or 1%, like if you got them cold. And then on top of that, helping you position your product against the competition if you get the right product. So, I see Amazon as, well, like it was for me, like it's a good first business, like actual business, as in not freelancing or not contracting, that allows you to get your feet wet for the world of business. You know, it takes care of a lot of the stuff for you, in my opinion. It's a relatively straightforward, easy to understand business model. It's not rocket science to be minorly successful and start making something that works and makes money. So it's a great way to get into business, I think, and get into online business.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. If you were doing your business through your Shopify website or your own website, which however it's powered, first of all, you have to bring the visitor to the website, right? So that's the biggest cost, because you have to pay, it's paying Google, paying whatever. So now that they are on the website, you have to make sure that the website behaves in a way that you won't bleed those who are actually willing to make a purchase, because that's another thing. It's something called shopping cart abandonment. I mean, that's a killer. I think numbers like 75%. That means 3 out of 4 people you lose once they put something in a cart. Sometimes people put things in a cart without any intention to buy, but nevertheless, take those out. Still, there's a huge percentage. So by the time you step back and say, okay, how much money did I spend? How many people did I bring? And how many orders I got? The numbers are never in your favor in terms of being able to make it cost effective. So plus, when you do the search, people are searching maybe for information, not necessarily looking to buy anything. So Amazon takes out all that, right? So anybody on Amazon, they're looking to make a purchase. They're not looking to read the news about a certain product. The second thing is this website behavior, as far as attrition, that's not there. So they've taken care of that. So you can really focus on how you stand out against the competition, and they provide the reviews and everything else. So I mean, that's the best way. And you actually mentioned something else, which is I always say that's the biggest benefit, that it really teaches you to build an online business, because online business needs certain disciplines, certain procedures, batch processing of things, and attention to detail, being able to stay on top of metrics and financials in a certain way. And if you don't know those things, you're not going to succeed, whether it's your website or anything else. It teaches you how to do those things. It makes you more metric oriented, so to speak, than touchy feely. So I always say, start on Amazon first. Don't look at anything else. So now that we say Amazon is the best way to start, what do you see as initial challenges when people start selling on Amazon?
I mean, there's a lot of initial challenges. I mean, it's the same challenge I see people who start selling on Amazon is the same challenge with anyone who starts a business, which is like analysis paralysis. Yes. So finding, there's so much opportunity out there, and so much opportunities are better than others, but eventually you've got to choose one and go for it. And you've got to have some, especially with Amazon, because it's you're not putting your sweat equity into it, although you are, your time, but also you do have to buy physical products. So you've got to have some capital, you've got to plan that out, you've got to go aggressive enough that you can be successful. So you can test the market, but you need enough that if it goes well, then you're not just going to immediately run out and go there. So you have to have some conviction behind it. So ideally have someone holding your hand and give you the confidence to do that. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, analysis paralysis, actually going for it and keeping going until you see success, just like with any other business, take 6 months, a year, can do.
Yeah, I mean, learning from the experience and then evolving in the process is the best. Because, you can analyze all day long, but once the rubber hits the road, you don't know. Plus, Amazon is making changes all the time, right? So you don't know what's coming your way. You know what I always say to people, and this is my favorite saying, I should really file this. Amazon, starting a business on Amazon is like tail wagging the dog. In other words, Amazon will come along with certain requirements, or they're not going to make them requirements, but in order for you to run the business in an efficient way and scale it, you're going to have to put certain infrastructure in place. And it's going to be fairly tedious because that's what Amazon wants. So a lot of people, I've seen this, I actually have a client right now. They started their businesses a while ago, maybe, or they are just starting and they've got some advice from people that they know who are in conventional way of running businesses. So they've got these archaic software systems, or they feel they can just wing it by doing Excel, and they basically wire their operation in a conventional way. And they talk to their accountants, and accountants who know nothing about Amazon advise them. Of course, they trust their account, and then say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Well, it doesn't really work that way because you have to streamline the operation. So I always tell people, be open-minded about rewiring your entire operation and maybe replacing some of your systems, because the best thing that can happen to you on Amazon, if you do everything right, and it's not easy, but that's what we're trying to accomplish, is you will scale. And when you scale, there is no time to rewire things or, replace software. So if you are starting, it's a good time for you to put infrastructure in place that can scale with your operation. That doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money, but it's making choices, desktop-based applications rather than web-based applications, things like that, applications that are closed, that doesn't import data easily versus those who are open. So those are the kind of choices I always say. And if you've started in the wrong direction, when you start on Amazon, replace. Otherwise, you'll get hit with all kinds of problems. So tell me, what is your take on a successful team? What does it take to run a successful operation? What does a good team look like in terms of responsibilities?
Just to go back to your previous, what you were talking about a second ago about accountants, don't listen to your accountant. On business advice, don't take business advice from your accountant. I've made that mistake before. They don't know anything about business. I mean, they probably don't even know that much about tax, so you probably shouldn't listen to them on tax advice either, especially as you get wealthier. They just file your paperwork for you. Yeah. So get good professionals around you, and the accountant you need, but just don't take business advice from them or tax advice if you're making a load of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fact, what I always tell people is, I say, look, this is very simple. Accountant is in the business of, generally speaking, CPA firms, they are making their living out of filing your taxes. So they want to, everybody, just like everybody, they want to maximize their income. So how do they maximize their income? By filing the maximum number of tax returns. So in order to file the maximum number of tax returns, they have to spend the minimum amount of time possible. So how do you expect that information to be good source for you to make business decisions? It's not. It's all about taxes. And then, and you're right. And if you're making good money, then you don't want to listen to them either. You just get them to do the paperwork. And as far as bookkeeping, some people say, oh yeah, but they also do our bookkeeping. Well, the same philosophy applies. The maximum number of bookkeeping accounts with minimum number of hours, how can that give you operational financials? It does not. So I mean, you're totally right on the point. So so tell us, describe for us a good team. What are the responsibilities?
Team for, I guess when you're starting out on Amazon, there's different levels, isn't there, of running a business. So there's like the starter level where you've not got much money and you just want support. Then there's the medium level where you're starting to scale. And then there's the high level, when you're really growing and you need to figure out which hat you want to wear. Because, at the start you wear all the hats, then you start giving out the hats. Then eventually maybe you wear no hats, maybe you wear one or two hats.
Yeah.
So I guess starting out, I've hired many different types of people, but I think something like an executive assistant when you're just starting out, by executive assistant, I mean an outsourced executive assistant, like a Filipino EA or VA is a great, just someone to do the admin stuff you don't want to do. So follow up, looking after things. And that's when you're going from say 0 to 20K a month in revenue, just having somebody there that can do stuff. You're still going to have to do the technical stuff. You're still going to have to do the complex thinking and strategy, but that's where I would go from 0 to 20K.
So, you mentioned that you wear different hats. So what are those hats that you have to really define and say, okay, this is a job? Because, a lot of the things, it's Amazon is becoming like medicine. In the old days, there was the general practitioner, your primary physician or whatever, who would take care of most things. These days, there is no such thing. You go and then you got like 5 different doctors involved. One is, looking at if you've got a pain somewhere, you have to get tests. So you have a lab involved, and then you've got the person who takes the blood or whatever and then you have somebody looking at it somewhere. So there's all these specialists. So too many hats in the medical space. Just like that, in Amazon, there are several hats, but a lot of the sellers don't even understand what's involved, what are core competencies that need to be, the skills needed. So can you describe for us what should be like the source of their attention?
When I was talking about hats, I was talking about major, like just general business operations hats, because, Amazon business is a business. So, you've got the leader, whether that's the CEO, COO, or those two, depends what your personality type is. Then you've got finance, operations, sales, and marketing. In Amazon, I would say, you've got operations, sales, and marketing. And operations, I'd put in product sourcing, moving things around, logistics, inventory projection, all that kind of stuff. And then in the sales and marketing, I'd put marketing, market research, potentially, depends whether you put that on ops or sales and marketing, PPC, or doing all of that stuff. And then you've got to start out with all those things. So 0 to 20K, you're doing all of that stuff, you're learning about it. You got some money. If say you've got a bigger budget, you might want to hire some agencies to help you with some of that stuff. So some of the strategies, some of the product evaluation, sourcing. A great agency for sourcing a product would be great, because you're not going to do as good job as if you just hire somebody who's not that expensive to help you find the right supplier once you've decided what your product needs to be. Good softwares to help you analyze the marketplace. So that's what you're investing in my opinion, from 0 to 20K. Then 20 to 100K a month, that's quite a big gap, but that's really when you're starting to pile people in. So then you'd work with maybe someone like Seller Candy, who does all the super technical stuff. So you no longer need to do it, or you don't need to learn it, because it's a pain in the ass learning all of the new Amazon stuff that comes up all the time. You might be able to get your first professional, like an operations manager. Somebody on the lower end, 3,000 to 5,000 a month, if you're willing to invest that from, just a professional person. You might start hiring some agencies, which is probably a better option there, for like a really good PPC agency, maybe a management agency, definitely a sourcing partner, people to do that stuff, probably a logistics person as well, because if you're really scaling, you're going to have a real pain point with logistics, because everything's flying everywhere and you've got to be super organized. And if you're me or most of us,
3PL, right? Also, in order to
use a 3PL, yeah, and then hopefully your logistics person will sort that out.
Yeah.
Then above that, you can start getting into actually having a real team. So depending what hat you're good at, I mean, you're a technical guy, so you're CTO, COO, you can probably sit in that seat. I do not want to sit in that seat because I'm terribly organized. So I sit in the CEO seat or maybe the business development seat, and then start filling all the other seats up with people. So find the best people you can afford, not the best people in the world because you can't afford them, and then start putting them in all those seats. And once you pass 100, 200K a month, then if you want to, you can start filling up those seats. If that's your goal, is to build a real business empire, long-term business, or I mean, you could just be running the business at that point with 3 to 5 lower paid employees and flip it to one of these aggregators or somebody who wants to buy a business.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely it's an effort. You have to be. I mean, there's one constant in all this that is the change that Amazon brings all the time. So while you're doing all this, you are changing yourself. You're evolving as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. You're dealing with all the issues. And at the same time, Amazon is throwing new stuff at you. So you have to pick them up quickly. So that's why it becomes very hard. And you really have to bring in a team together. And I always say, you have to have one beacon of light that you need to follow. That's an expert, an outside expert. You can't hire those people. It costs too much money. But always have somebody on your side that can tell you, this is the most recent thing, you can't do this anymore, and blah blah, because you don't want to find out about those things after it's too late. Right? So that outside expertise this is a fact. You need this because those people deal with many sellers and they see different perspectives. So that's where I think your company does provide great service, because you bring the perspective of many different situations and sellers. So this is great, John. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and how you got into this? What's the attraction to be in a complicated, fixing business?
Well, I mean, I'm from the UK. I grew up in Nottingham, where Robin Hood is from. That's what I always say, because I don't live in the UK. And if I say Nottingham to people here, because I live in Vietnam, they think I mean Notting Hill. It's like, oh, that movie with Hugh Grant. Like, no, the one in the middle of England. So I was an engineer, but a mechanical engineer, nothing to do with tech. And I wanted to, make money online. So back in 2014, I was looking for ways of making money online. Thought about blogging and all that stuff back then, and glad I didn't, because I'm a terrible writer and bad at being organized. And I heard about Amazon. So I did a course and started selling on Amazon. I was lucky. Everything is timing plus effort. Timing was great. Launched a supplement company in Europe, and we did really well. Within the first couple of years, we were doing like $1.5 million revenue. Just started running that for a while. Launched some other businesses, launched some other products, did some really cool viral products and things like that. Until the markets always get destroyed. It goes viral, you do well, the Chinese come in, price hits the floor. And then I left the UK then, about a year later in 2015, and wanted to travel the world. So I did the whole digital nomad, like location independent entrepreneur thing. And a couple of years later, I was like, I'm bored of selling generic products on the internet. There's no value, particularly in the products I'm selling. Value add. I mean, they're good products, but there's no, I'm not improving the world.
Yeah.
Just selling more products. And so I did a lot of Tony Robbins, as you talked about at the start, got really into personal development. And a takeaway I had from that was that I wanted to add more value, add more value to more people. And the more people you impact, the better you can be and do, and the more successful you can be. So I started a full service agency called Ecom DNA. And after concentrating on operations and not knowing how to run an agency business. I got a really good sales coach, and then we went like that, grew like crazy. And then I realized that I hated the business model, the agency business model. Like, you've got to have really expensive, highly skilled people, and the margins aren't great. And at the same time, you can't be successful for everyone, because you can get all these leads in, and then everyone wants to do well on Amazon, but they're usually people with products. And that product isn't necessarily a good fit for the Amazon marketplace. Like, they don't have enough PR, they don't have enough marketing, and the pricing and the product market fit isn't right for Amazon. So I went back to the drawing board after we already sold like $1 million worth of consulting. I was like, okay, back to the drawing board, start again. Let's take a small part of that, which is dealing with seller support and dealing with all the complex stuff on the back end that everybody has who's a successful seller, and let's do that super well. And let's have a standard pricing model, not just make up numbers from 3,000 to 8,000 a month. Let's just say it starts at $500 a month, up to however much you want to spend if you're an agency, and then let's do it for everyone, for online arbitrage sellers, resellers, private label sellers, agencies, aggregators. Let's be the people in the industry who do the stuff nobody else wants to do through our own portal. So we created a portal, shoved our team on the back end, and now we have 70 people on the back end. We have a portal on the front end. You can just go to our website, sign up, and that's how the business side works. That's great. Personally, I have a personal side as well. That was just the business side.
And so, John, tell us, how can people reach you? Give us your contact information. We'll obviously put that on the website and together with the episode, but share with us your contact information.
Contact me. You can email me. John with an H, john@sellercandy.com. You can check me out on Facebook or LinkedIn. John Cavendish, and just check out sellercandy.com. We've got some really cool stuff. Some we can check out our testimonials, our video sales pages, our landers, so you can really see how Seller Candy works for you and could work for you. Great.
Well, this was great. So we'll put all the information on the website, and I'm sure people will reach out. And with that, I'll just say big thank you. I'm sure everything we shared, people will take it to heart and use it. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me, and always good to see you.
Yeah, and this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure and subscribe, rate, and review our show. And be sure and share an episode with a friend. And thank you so much for being with us today. We'll see you next week here on Amazon Legends.